You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
Hello, very good evening to you, and welcome to the Scottish Football Zone. It's been a long time since I've been on the show, so it's happy to be back with you, and I'm happy to have Heidi back on the show as well. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's been. I was just saying to you that the last time you were on the show with me, we were talking about Wilfred Nancy coming to Celtic, and there's been a lot more happening in between times.
Oh, aye, 100%.
So we are going to be talking about the football tonight. Of course, it's Championship action and the Premiership action tomorrow. Well, there's a game tonight actually, but we're going to focus on the top six first, and then the bottom six, and then the Championship football as well. Don't forget you can subscribe to the channel. It is the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube as well. So yeah, it's been a quiet old time since the last time me and you spoke, Heidi.
Aye, it's been a busy week in Scottish football. There's never any quiet moments in the Premiership this season.
And before you get started, I believe that you've got your own podcast now. Tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that.
So it's basically me, Molly, and Morgan. So Molly is a Hearts fan and Morgan's a Hibs fan, and we created this podcast all about Scottish football. We record it every Sunday, and we usually get uploaded by that week. And it's basically just all things Scottish football, what happened in the weekend, and it is a great podcast. And it's on Spotify. If any of you want to listen, it's called Far From Accurate, and it's just we all talk about Scottish football and all the results of the weekend, and we also predict the scores for the upcoming fixture. So if you want to check that out, it'd be appreciated. But yeah, it's the podcast is going great. I mean, it's going better than I expected. So nah, it's been a great podcast, and I'm really grateful to have an opportunity to do stuff like this.
There you go, check it out as well. And I'm happy to have you back on the Scottish Football Zone. As I said, it's been a while. We'll deep dive into the championship because I can't believe we're into the final games of the season in the championship, but we still don't know who's going to be in that playoff position. Heidi, obviously, St Johnson's coming back up to the Premiership, and a welcome return to Simo Valakari and everybody connected to St Johnson. But first of all, let's talk about the top six then. There's big games tomorrow, big games all weekend actually, and there's even a bank holiday Monday game in Premiership, and that's what you have to believe. We'll get that in a minute, but let's talk about the two informed sides this season. I think Falkirk and Motherwell tomorrow.
I mean, that's going to be a very interesting game. Obviously, Falkirk had a bit of disappointments, obviously, in the Cup against Dunfermline, lost some penalties, and then obviously they lost to Celtic there. And I think, Motherwell have been an excellent side all season as well. It's two teams who do play a very, very good brand of football, so it's great to see that, and especially Motherwell. I mean, they've been outstanding it all season. Obviously, a great result at Ibrox against Rangers, fully deserved, and I think they've shown a spirit why, both teams deserve to be in the top six, and they've shown that all season. So that's going to be a really interesting game at Falkirk Stadium, and honestly, it could go either way with the both teams. Obviously, Falkirk secured that top six. Obviously, Motherwell will be fighting for that fourth place with Hibs. I know they're only like a few points off Hibs, so it's going to be very, very interesting game. And obviously, it's a massive game for both sides, especially Motherwell to try and keep that fourth place. But nah, it's going to be a very, very interesting game.
There you go. Graham says, well done, Heidi. It's fantastic to see you on here. And your podcast with Morgan and Molly is class. Couldn't be proud of you guys.
Oh,
So keep up
thanks, Graham. I
the
really
good work.
appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And obviously, Graham will be on here on Monday after the Hearts and Rangers game, because I think that's quite a big game on Monday. But we'll get into it pretty soon. Going back to this game, Falkirk against Murrow. Do you think the Falkirk's had a good season? But in terms of like a few weeks ago, they played Rangers off the park in the first half, but obviously Rangers came back and won that game. Do you think Falkirk's confidence has kind of went a wee bit, or due to that defeat against Rangers?
Obviously, Falkirk have been, really outstanding this season. There's no getting a doubt about that. I think they maybe have dropped in form a wee bit, but I just think they have been excellent. They have shown a consistency, especially at home. But I just think, they need to try and just keep pushing on. And obviously, they have secured top six, which is massive for Falkirk. And John McGlynn also seen that John McGlynn has been up for Manager of the Year, which is fully deserved. He's been an outstanding manager for Falkirk. Took them up from League One, Championship, now Premiership, and no one ever really expected Falkirk to be top six. Obviously, I expect them, to stay up, but not the way they've done it this season. They've been outstanding. Some of the players, Barney Stewart has been an outstanding player for Falkirk, and obviously Calvin Miller should have got, a great team and a great spirit. So hopefully they can just keep that up. But they have been a joy to watch this season.
Talk to me about John McGlynn. Obviously, he's been nominated for the PFA Scotland Manager of the Year. But do you think that do you think that he should have been nominated by now, because he's done well with Falkirk over the years?
Yeah, I'm quite surprised maybe not got like a maybe manager of the month award, just considering how well he's done, secured that top six. I was quite surprised, but obviously there's a lot of other good managers, but yeah, I think he definitely does deserve to be in the manager of the year contender. He has been a fantastic manager, but yeah, I'm quite surprised he's not been up for at least a manager of the month award at least.
Yeah, no, exactly. Do you think that there'll be other clubs looking about him at the end of the season?
I mean, you never know. Obviously, when Aberdeen were obviously looking for a manager when Tilleen got sacked, and obviously he was kind of a name, but you never know. Obviously, maybe another top club might look at him, or maybe another club elsewhere. But I think right now at Falkirk, he's done a fantastic job, and obviously to leave Falkirk would be a blow for Falkirk and their fans because how well he's done this season. But I know he's been obviously been at Hearts previously and stuff. But yeah, I think even if he did get picked for a top club, I wouldn't be surprised with how well he's done at Falkirk this season.
Yeah, just to run past you, just to run by you, the manager of the year, if you haven't sought the nominations, are John McGlynn, Derek McInnes of Hearts, and Gary Naismith of Stenhousemuir, or as we say in Scotland, Stenny, and they've had a excellent season as well. So these are the nominations for the manager of the year. But also as well that what were you surprised not to see any of the big two in there, i.e. Mark O'Neill or Danny Rowe at Rangers?
I mean, not really, but in terms of maybe even the Motherwell manager, I was quite shocked to not see Askew in there. I think he has done an absolute standing job at Motherwell, and for him not to be a contender really did surprise me a lot. Just how well he's done at Motherwell, built a team of like good, fantastic players coming up like Sir Elliot Watt, Elijah Just, I'm quite surprised he is not in there, but obviously the likes of Derek McInnes, who's done an outstanding job at Hearts this season. They're top of the table. They could they could win a league title, which is massive, massive for Hearts, considering where they were last season. McGlynn, deserved what he's done at Falkirk, top six, and obviously Gary Naismith, Dennis the manager. I know they could get promotion to the Championship if Inverness lose to Hamilton. Obviously, Stenny, they've done very well in League One, but I'm really surprised with Askew not being in there. I'm quite shocked at that. But I think either Martin O'Neill, if Martin O'Neill was in there, deserved, because what he's done with that Celtic team, we've been awful all season, and to even still pick up results with that team is just incredible. And especially even role at Rangers, he's done a great job considering where Rangers were under Russell Martin. I'm sure he's only lost 2 games at home. So yeah, I think it's obviously, there's a lot of managers in there, but I was shocked that Askew wasn't in there.
Yeah, of course, Martin O'Neill was the manager of the month for April as well. And yeah, so just come back to this game as well. Talking about the manager of the year, I think you could easily make a good case for the Falkirk. There's a few Falkirk players you would like to see up and nominated for the Player of the Year. Like, I know that you mentioned about Calvin Miller as well.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Miller has been outstanding for Falkirk. Like Barney Stewart as well, I'm sure Barney was up for Young Player of the Year. So I think, either one of them do deserve to be up there, and I think they have showed that quality in that Falkirk side, because I've obviously, when I was at the Celtic Falkirk game there on Saturday, and I thought even though Falkirk were beat, they still played not bad, like they still played quite well. And it just shows you they are a very tricky team to beat. And I just think, it's just been an incredible season for them, and they fully, fully deserve to be where they are at the minute. And, the players that McGlynn has brought up, and, a lot of young players as well, has just been outstanding for them, outstanding for the club, and outstanding for the town as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Falkirk is one of these teams where they're a big support as well. But I've always said in the show area that it would be nice to for them to have that extra stand opposite the main stand, because that would be a kind of like cracking atmosphere at the Falkirk Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Falkirk, they do create a very, very good atmosphere. I know at their stadium, their pitch is nice as well. So, it's just been a joy to watch for them, and hopefully they keep continuing up. Obviously next season, hopefully they do as well as they did this season, because they do deserve what they've achieved, and it's been an incredible season for them. So yeah.
And as for Motherwell, I bet even though we say it's been an incredible season for Falkirk, it's been a very incredible season for Motherwell. I mean, just about 5 weeks ago, everybody was writing Motherwell off, including the Motherwell fans, but they were in the title race up until about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Motherwell kind of slipped up. They did have a few defeats on the card, but other than that, I think they have been utterly outstanding all season. Finishing the top four, they were very poor last season, and obviously Askew coming in has done an incredible job. Got a lot of decent young players in there, the likes of, as I say, Just Watt, Callum Slattery, Callum Ward, who's been a great goalkeeper for Motherwell, Stephen Welsh, brought him from Celtic. It's just been, they have been such a joy to watch, and obviously that Lugongo who scored against Rangers. So they have just been a very good joy to watch. Obviously a star player for them as well is Tuanda Maswanise, who's been the top goal scorer in the Premiership this season, which is just a credit to their manager, a credit to the players. They've shown that kind of consistency. Obviously everyone's talking about them being the title race. Obviously there's still obviously a battle for fourth place against them and Hibs. But honestly, the job that Askew's done has been incredible, and I know obviously people were maybe saying he could come to Celtic, which obviously I do understand why, just considering how well he has done. So I'm not surprised at that, but they have done an incredible achievement for Motherwell. Where they were last season, not the best. This season they've turned it around massively, where the players are signed and the brand of football they played this season. They've been a joy to watch.
And are you surprised that Betty Askell wasn't in the nominations for the manager of the season?
Yeah, I was very, very shocked at that. I looked at it and I was like, really, really surprised that Askew wasn't there, considering his first season at Motherwell could get a top four finish. It's incredible to see, and I was really, really shocked by that, because they have been absolutely outstanding this season. They bet Celtic, they bet Rangers. They've had, obviously I know they got beat in the cup they obviously got beaten the cup by St Mirren, but considering that, I mean, they've been outstanding. They've shown that, consistent in the league, and I was really shocked that Askew wasn't there. I was quite surprised, but I think it just depends. But I was quite shocked by that, to be fair.
Well, would you be interested to see if he goes to Celtic, right? To see how he works with our kind of like bigger budget, because obviously at Fir Park they'll be on maybe like a quarter of a budget that Celtic's got, and they're still getting a tune out them week in week out. But would you be interested to see how he does at Celtic with maybe like 5 times the budget that he's on at Motherwell?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they came to Celtic, he'd get my backing all the way because how well he's done at Motherwell, and he kind of gets a grip of the Scottish League now. But obviously, I know he's been at Parkhead a few times. Obviously, I think he was there on Saturday. I think he was obviously probably
Yep.
looking at Falkirk because obviously they've got them this week, sorry. But I think as well, I would love, I mean, if Askew does come to Celtic, gets a bigger budget, if he does well, I'll be very, very delighted for that. So if he does come to Celtic, I'd get my backing all the way, just considering how well he's done at Motherwell. And he knows this league. It's not just like, someone who's not got a clue this league. He knows what the league's about, his first season in charge. So if he comes to Celtic, I mean, I'd be right behind them.
Graham is asking if Askell went to Celtic, you have to think that it would take 2 or 3 Motherwell players with him, and I think like one and one Nisi is kind of like is one of the players that it would take.
Yeah, I mean, Mas Renise has been outstanding for Motherwell this season. I'm sure he's the top goal scorer in the Premiership so far. Just obviously above Negrin, but I think if he does come to Celtic, and if Askew does obviously bring a couple of players, I'd be very delighted to have them in the squad. They know the league. They're especially Maswisi banging in goals, so I would be right on board if Maswisi likes a just or what did come to Celtic. I'd be right on board with it.
So what's your prediction about this game? I mean, even though that these teams are in the top 6, right? And obviously they can't win the league or whatever, right? But it's a very interesting game because it's two sides that gets the ball down and plays nice football.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody, all the pundits, and I know a lot of people who are doing Scottish football podcasts have said the same. Motherwell have been outstanding. They play a great brand of football that everybody's enjoying. It's been a joy to watch them this season, and if hopefully they do continue that going obviously the last 4 games. But they have been such a joy to watch, and especially at their home ground. I'm actually like when we play them away, I'm actually quite nervous to play them away, just considering we also got beat off of them earlier on the season. But they have been such a joy to watch.
Well, what do you think your prediction will be in this game?
Oh, it's interesting. It's really hard to predict. Falkirk have been outstanding. Motherwell have obviously that, but obviously they got that win at Ibrox, a 3-2 victory. I'm going to go a draw. I'm going to go 1-1. But if either team won that, I wouldn't be surprised. Especially, Falkirk have been dipped a wee bit in the last few games. But I wouldn't be surprised if either team won. But because I really couldn't really predict it, I'm just going to go with a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'm about like you. I'm gonna go for a draw. I'm gonna go for a kind of high scoring game. Falkirk 2, Motherwell 2 in that one. So we shall see on that one. Moving on to the game on Sunday, I think you'll be interested in this one, Heidi. It's Hibs against Celtic at high 12 o'clock, and it's going to be quite interesting this game, obviously, because Celtic wants to keep up their winning ways. Because I think this is the second weekend in a row Celtic's played first, so they've got the slight advantage. But also, for Hibs, it would be interesting to see how they bounce back after going down to 9 men last week in the derby.
Yeah, obviously, Hibs is never an easy ground to go to. They are still battling it for place against Motherwell. You know, Easter Road is never an easy place to go. And I think obviously the derby last week, you know, Hibs did show up. I thought Hibs played quite well in the derby, you know, going one up, going to go up, and obviously Hearts kind of near the end getting that win. But I think it's going to be a tough game regardless. You know, Hibs are not a bad side, and you know they have been, you know, a wee bit, you know, inconsistent, but it shows you that every game coming up now is never easy, and especially Easter Road, it's a hard weekend to go to. So hopefully we just keep up the winning ways. We have to win every game, obviously, to go on and win the league. But it's going to be obviously interesting. Obviously, we got that win against Falkirk at home, and obviously we're getting kind of the advantage again because obviously Hearts Rangers play Monday. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one goes. But if nothing but a win would for me, no matter if we play, you know, if we play rubbish but get win, that's all that matters to me at this stage of the season. I know we kind of need to keep up the goal difference, but hopefully we just get the win and the 3 points. That's all I'm looking for at this stage of the season. I'm sure every fan in the top six will be feeling the same, or even in the top three as well. Will be feeling the same just for a team to get 3 points. I think that's the main goal, and hopefully we do that. But as I said, Easter Road is never an easy place to go.
What do you think of this comment by Graham? I think it's very funny, and I've heard it, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, that Heart fans want Hibs to win. Some same Hibs fans would want Celtic to beat Hibs, and Celtic fans want Rangers to take points off Hearts. Just get to the you know, feel the love in Scottish football. Yeah, it's one of these seasons where I mean I spoke about this ages ago, Eddie, but this time of the season that you know who's won the league, Celtic or Rangers, by about 10 points or 20 points or whatever. But you know, this will go down to the wire, and like rival teams would want their rivals to take up points against whoever they're playing. And yeah, it's just it's one of these kind of seasons where I think it will go down in history, because obviously you would want a tighter league instead of teams winning it by say 20 points, 15 points.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking to Scott Bradley, and especially my podcast. I say I think the season's going to go last game of the season. I think generally it's going to go down to the wire. Just how tight it is, you know, there's only a few points between the top three. I know obviously a lot of folk are saying if Hearts do beat Rangers, they folk are saying Rangers could be out of it, but not mathematically. I think there's still a wee bit to go yet. But it has been a mad season, you know, and I like the fact it's really tight and all three are still in the race. And obviously previous seasons it's just been, you know, Celtic, you know, run away with it, or somebody else like Rangers, for example, run away with it. But this season, it's been a joyous season, and I think it will definitely be a season to remember wherever the league goes. You know, it has been an incredible watch, and I think for a lot of neutral fans as well, especially English people, have been talking about the league and how incredible it has been. But I generally think it will go down to the wire, and it's going to be a mad end to the season.
What do you think of half this season? Because obviously they're kind of like one of these kind of Scottish teams that it's very like enigma, because obviously they're a very big team, big support and all the rest of it. But every season they just falter. I mean, look at the Scottish Cup against Dunfermline as well, and then they beat Hearts early on in the season at Easter Road, albeit they were actually lucky to win that game at the end of the game. And then if you think about it, the game last weekend, scoring 1-0 in the first couple minutes of the game, and get the goalkeeper and get a goalkeeper sent off, and then before you know it, they were down to 9 men.
I mean, Hibs, you know, one of the teams, you know, they won one week and then they're just up and down, Hibs, I feel. But I think in terms, you know, this season, they have been all right. You know, they haven't, you know, been basically like outstanding. Obviously, last season, you know, they were near the bottom of the league, and to finish, you know, in the top six, I think they finished third last season. It was just incredible. And, you know, David Gray has done a great job at Hibs. There's no denying that, you know, and especially, you know, some of the new signings they've signed have made an impact. at Hibs, but I think Hibs are one of these teams where they're consistent one week and the next week they're not. So I think, Hibs need to try and maybe keep their consistency up. But I think, they're still in a chance for fourth place against Motherwell and we're only a few points off them. So we'll just see what happens. But as I said before, Hibs are obviously not an easy team to beat, but we'll just see what happens come end of the season. But Hibs have been, they're up and down, but they're still been, not the worst.
Yeah, no, exactly. And obviously, Celtic's under Martin O'Neill now because Brendan Rodgers had a terrible record at Easter Road. I don't know why, but you always get that when they have as we say in Scottish football, bogey teams, and Hibs were setting a bogey team for Celtic under Brendan Rodgers. But I mean, I think the Celtic fans and everybody connected to Celtic will have that. When the last time Hibs came to Celtic Park, Hibs beat Celtic, and that will be playing on their minds as well going into the game.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, I was actually at the game with the betters, and I think credit to Hibs. They played good, and obviously we just didn't take our chances that game. We weren't great at all. We just didn't take our chance, and obviously we get the send off Wilson Trusty, and I just think Hibs will obviously they'll feel quite confident. Obviously I know they got beat off in March, but they will feel confident, especially at home. We've not got obviously under Rodgers. We didn't have the greatest record at Easter Road, and obviously the last game we played them, and we are sure won 2-1. So I think obviously it's going to be interesting, but I think in terms of this game, I think it's every game's tough. No game's obviously going to be easy, but I think Hibs will definitely be up for it, especially if they want to fight for that fourth place against Motherwell.
Yeah, every game's a cup final now as well. For Celtic, and also obviously for Celtic and Rangers and Hearts. But you would say that Rangers and Hearts and Monday night is like a big kind of like cup final as well. Obviously, we're going to talk about that, but. I know that I was having a laugh and a joke with you at the top of the show about the last time you were on with me, Wilfred Nancy was appointed, and that seemed like ages ago now. But well, it was ages ago. But what? Speak to me about what kind of job Martin O'Neill's done, because he's done a terrific job. By the way, he's not done it once; he's done it twice.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when Nancy did get appointed, I was trying to keep on board with him, but just didn't work for the guy, didn't really know Scottish football at all. We only won 2 games out of 8, and I think it was the right time for him just to go and realise maybe Celtic wasn't for him. But in my opinion, I think we should have just kept Martin O'Neill just for the full time if we knew he was just going to come back. Like, honestly, but Martin O'Neill's just a living legend. If we win the league, he deserves nothing but a statue outside Celtic Park because he's just been outstanding. Getting wins out of that team. Wilfred Nancy couldn't get really anything out of the team and played a formation that just didn't work. But Martin O'Neill just came back, played the exact formation we're used to playing, and we're getting wins. We're in a Scottish Cup final. We're on for a league title, which I'm just mad to say that under Nancy, no, we were probably nowhere near a league title, but under Martin, I've still got a wee bit of faith we could possibly do it and win the Scottish Cup. But I'm just delighted. What a job he's done, even just gets great and wins with that team, which I'm just so shocked at. But you know what? He's just been phenomenal. And I think having somebody that knows Celtic, knows the club, knows what it means, knows what it takes to play for be managed Celtic. And I think credit comes to him and obviously the coaching staff as well, Sean Money and Foringham, credit to them as well, just for even getting a tune out of these players. But it's just he's done a phenomenal job, and I just can't thank him enough for everything he's done so far. And if we go and win the league, the guy deserves a statue outside Celtic Park because how well he's coped with this team, and obviously with how Hearts and Rangers have definitely been, been a wee bit better than us this season, but especially Hearts. But yeah.
I know that we were talking about the manager of the year, right? And nothing's been won yet on the 1st of May, right? But imagine if Martin O'Neill goes on to win the double, right? And wins the league and wins the Scottish Cup. But it's not been nominated for the manager of the year. Do you think that will get to him a wee bit, or do you think he'll not care about that?
I really don't know, to be fair. Obviously, if we did, I was quite, obviously there's a lot of other maybe managers who've obviously, McInnes does deserve to be in there if Hearts do go on to win the league. But yeah, obviously, as I said, like I was saying, if whoever wins the league will get manager of the year. And obviously, if he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it. But if he goes and wins this league and wins this cup, I mean, it would be extraordinary considering where we were. But just see what happens. But I think I've said it before. I think Hearts will go win the league. I've just got a feeling. But even if we did go and win the league and he's not been nominated, I think it's just because we were on the table. But I just think we'll just see what happens. But end of the day, I just think it's been an extraordinary season in the league, and I think we'll just see what happens for there.
Do you think Celtic key players are coming back right now, like Alice Johnson? He came on. He came on last week. He played well. Listening to Martinelli today, and I think a good part about the season is because Celtic's not get any more games now. And midweek, apart from Motherwell coming up in a few weeks' time. But do you feel as though it's quite good for Ali Johnson just to get a full week's training under his belt before the next game?
100%. I mean, obviously he has been a big miss, especially Cameron Carter-Vickers as well, and obviously Jota been out for so long as well. It was really nice to see him back on the pitch last weekend to even get a few minutes. But definitely, I think Alistair Johnson has played a big part in Celtic's team. He's been an outstanding right back for us. I think obviously with Araujo coming in as well, he has showed up massively. Obviously, he has showed some good moments. Scored a last minute goal at Rugby Park against Kelly. So I think it felt like a new signing having Alistair Johnson back. I think just having him back from injury was just a joy, and hopefully, we'll just see if we'll obviously make it to the 11th. But I know that Ralston's been playing his position. Obviously, I know a lot of Celtic fans do judge Ralston. I think he's done all right. I think he's just sometimes he has a. He does have a mistake in him, but I just think, he scored obviously at the weekend against last in the cup against St Mirren, but we'll just obviously, see what happens. But I think having Johnson back was a breath of fresh air.
Martin said today that it's going to be a difficult game. They beat us before, and it's going to be a massive game. Listen, it's a massive game anyway. Like any team going for the league, whether it's Rangers, Celtic, or Hearts going for the league, it's going to be a massive game. If they were going to East Road or an away game or even a home game, but I think Celtic will be up for this game because of obviously they defeat him. And it's amazing how many times Celtic fans go to the games and they think the league's over because obviously you had Hibs, you had Dundee United this season. Obviously you had Motherwell this season as well. And 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 they're still in the title race.
Yeah, obviously, I always kind of, I kind of obviously was a bit angry this season, in terms of like, I thought all would be out the title race. I don't really see us win the league, but I'm honestly still so surprised how we're in this title race, considering where we've been. But I generally think, it's anybody's game to win the league. It just depends who's most. I've said it all season. It just depends who's most consistent in the split to win the league. It's a team who's obviously going to get the most wins. Obviously next 4 games, who's going to be most consistent, who's going to show up, and we'll just see what happens. But I generally obviously a lot of focus in a lot of the Celtic players know how to win leagues. Obviously it's a McGregor, Hatate, Forrest, Trusty, Vickers, a lot of our players have won league titles before. So I think obviously we're used to winning leagues before, but we'll just see what happens. But I think this season it's just been mental.
How impressed have you been with Maida? Because obviously it's been a weird season because it was reported that it was all set to leave Celtic in the January window. He stayed. He's not been consistent. But over the past couple of weeks, including the Scottish Cup tie against Midland, he's been back to his best.
Yeah, I think, Maeda hasn't been the best all season, he's been really inconsistent, which you look at him previous last season, he was outstanding, the amount of goals he scored as well. He was phenomenal last season, he was up there with probably the top goal scorer last season, and this season he just dipped, that game obviously way back in summer against Kairat in the Champions League, it just felt like something was missing for him, and obviously I know he apparently told in February back then that wanted to leave Celtic, but I think he might go and leave. But considering obviously against it man against remote against Falkirk, it just felt like his old self again. It just felt like he can do it. He can. He's got the ability to do it. I don't know why he hasn't really been shown it this season. But against Falkirk, against it man, he picked up, scored in with the first minute against it man in the cup, and obviously got a double against Falkirk at the weekend. So it was nice for him to get in the score sheet. I've always rated Maeda. I always thought he's an outstanding player. And obviously brought him in from Japan, and he's just been an outstanding servant for Celtic. I just think he picked up where he has been really poor this season, but I was really delighted for him to just see that, it just felt like old Maeda again, but it's been one of them, he's been so inconsistent, but it was nice for him to get a double, it was nice for him to get in the score sheet because he was needing it.
And I don't think that I'm talking about the top three teams going for the title. I'm not. I'm sure that most fans would be at the stage that the win is more important than the performance.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, I think yeah, obviously the win is obviously the most important thing in the league. Every team wants to win, but obviously the goal difference. Obviously, they need to obviously who's going to score the most goals. But I think every team in that top three, and even in the top six, will just want to win. All they're wanting is wins. That's all they're after. And I think the performance can go out the window. Obviously, you do want to see your team have a good performance, but if it comes out as a not best performance, but you get 3 points, I think that's what every team in that top six, especially in the top three, will be asking for this season.
There you go. Steve has contacted us for YouTube. He says, I'm a Liverpool fan from Scotland, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like to the channel. The Scottish Football Zone. We're here all through the season, and we'll be back on Sundays. We're looking back at the games and also looking more forward to that big game on Monday night between Hearts and Rangers. What I've spoken to you about Martin O'Neill, Heidi, but what has Martin O'Neill done different? Has he basically kept the kind of message kind of simple? Because football's a kind of difficult game. I think Nancy came in on the first game against Hearts actually, and there was changing the formation, and it was changing things too quick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Nancy, he just changed it far too quick. He went to a back three, which we haven't played a back three in God knows how long. I think it was obviously the first spell under Martin O'Neill back like 20 years ago. I think we did used to play a back three. But in terms of that, the players we've got now were never used to a formation like that. I think obviously you're a new manager, you want to spin a new style, but especially at that stage of the season, I just think, Martin O'Neill has just, made it simple. You should obviously all know what it means to play for Celtic. Just go out there and give it your all, go and give it your best performance. So Martin O'Neill just makes it simple and clear. Wilfred Nancy just complicated it far too much. And I think he just kind of changed things around what the players weren't used to, obviously. It just didn't help, but I just think, obviously, Martin has just came in, just told these players what it means to play for Celtic, how it means to play for this club. Martin O'Neill knows this club inside out. He's been in a European final. He's won, cups with us as well. So he obviously knows what it means. So I just think Nancy just didn't know what it meant.
So, what do you think the prediction will be in this game, Heidi? Between Hibs and Celtic on Sunday?
Nothing but anything but honestly a win would do me fine. But I'm going to just go with 2-1. I think Hibs will score, but even if we come out and just get the win, that's all that matters. So I'm just going to go with a 2-1 victory for us.
2-1. Okay. I'll go 3-1 for Celtic on Sunday. At Hibs as well. So yeah, so that is the game on Sunday. Let's move on to. It's a bit unusual to talk about all the games spread all over the weekend, and this game this game's on Monday night at 5:30 kickoff. Graham will be itching to talk about the game. Hearts against Rangers, and yeah, two teams going into this game with one win last week. Hearts won against Hibs. Murrow dominated the game at Ibrox against Rangers, so it would be interesting to see how Rangers kind of bounce back from this the game last week.
Yeah, 100%. This game is absolutely massive in terms of the title. Obviously Hearts coming back of a derby win, which was massive. Rangers obviously a defeat at home to Motherwell. Rangers will want to look to pick back up. That game's going to be crucial. I would definitely be watching that. I think it's going to be crucial for either team. I think obviously a draw obviously is maybe just it might not be the worst, but I think if Rangers obviously did lose this game, I know a lot of folk are saying they could be out of the race. But obviously not mathematically, but I think there will be, I think maybe like 7 points behind Hearts if they lose this game. But it's going to be so interesting. This game is massive for both teams in terms of title. Hearts try to consist their lead at the top of the table. Rangers will obviously want to pick up after defeat. So it's going to be so interesting in terms of the title race. And this game is huge for both sides.
Yeah, no, exactly. Do you feel as though that the atmosphere will play its part?
Yeah, 100%. I think the fans, play their part in the games. They create the atmosphere, they create the noise, and I think, they create the motivation the players need. And I think this game's going to be crucial in terms of both sides. Both sides need a win. Especially Hearts and even Rangers after last week. So we'll just see what happens. But it's going to be a massive, massive, massive game for both teams, and especially for this title as well.
Of course, Derek McInnes was speaking to the media tomorrow. He was actually speaking to the media today. He says, I wish it was tomorrow. I wish the game was tomorrow because you just want to get the game played. But of course, you are looking forward to those games. I love the games at Tynecastle, in particular, the whole build up. So there's obviously a lot Reagan on the game, and we can't downplay that. And why would we? It's a brilliant game to be involved in. I think all of the Hearts fans I spoke to here are eager for the game. Monday at that time is unusual, but not going to play a part in the game. What's going to unfold? The start of the game will be massive. Hopefully, the end to the game is even better. And I think Derek hits on two big points there. How will the first goal will be key in this game.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it's a funny time. 5:30 isn't the greatest for a lot of people, especially like working that. And I know obviously it is a bank holiday, and I think it's for maybe television rights or something. But at the end of the day, this game is going to be crucial Monday night. If Celtic win, it's going to obviously put massive pressure, on the two of them. And obviously, I think Celtic fans obviously probably the best result would be a draw. But I think at the end of the day, we just can't rely on our team. We need to just focus on ourselves and focus on every game. Whatever happens this game, we're just got to consider, we need to try and win every game. Obviously, Hearts and Rangers are looking to win this game as well. Both teams will want to win it. It's massive, especially at Tynecastle. It's crucial. It's a crucial game. Obviously, Hearts have been outstanding all season. Players have showed up for Hearts, especially the back line for Hearts, Shankland, Devlin, Braga especially has been an outstanding player for Hearts. He's showed up his quality this season, so it's going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, Danny Rowe has done a great job at Rangers considering with the worst, so it's going to be crucial for the both teams to see who's wanting to still keep within this title race.
Of course, yeah, Danny Rowe was talking as well. He said they're doing well. Hearts are doing well, but it's going to be a tough place to go as well. I mean, I know it's a tough place to go at the best of times, Heidi, but even more so, even more so when the games are running down.
Yeah, obviously, there's 4 games to go. It's a very obviously Tynecastle is a really tough place to go. Even previously, it's always been a hard ground to go to Tynecastle. But it's just going to be such a crucial game. It's going to be title maybe decide on the cards. It's going to be massive for both teams. Obviously, Hearts obviously want to get the 3 points. Rangers want to get the 3 points to keep themselves in the hunt. So it's going to be crucial for both teams.
I'm scared to ask this question, Heidi, right? Because I'm not sure what Graham and other Hearts fans will say in the chat. But what is the difference this season? Do you think it's because Celtic and Rangers has not been that brilliant, Hearts been brilliant, or something in between?
It's a mix of both. I think obviously, Celtic haven't been at their best, under Wilfred Nancy. I think maybe Hearts have obviously took the advantage. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what manager Celtic is or what, because obviously Celtic have been dominating Scottish football for nearly over 40 years. They know obviously what to expect. But I think credit to Hearts where it's due. Derek McInnes has done an outstanding job at Hearts. Considering where Hearts were last season, they have done fantastic. The players were signed like Braga, the likes of obviously Craig Halkett, Stuart Finlay have made an impact at Hearts, but especially Claudio Braga, what a signing he's been for Hearts, and obviously a few other players like Leonard and obviously McEntee have made an impact at Hearts, but honestly, Hearts have just been outstanding. If any team in the league right now deserves to win the league, it's Hearts. I think Hearts have been, phenomenal this season. I know obviously their away form isn't the best, but I know Hearts haven't lost a game at home. So I think that game's massive. Obviously, Hearts obviously want to keep up that streak, not losing at home. So it's just been a mental season. But fair play to Hearts with it's due. They still, even when Martinez came back or whatever, or Celtic and Rangers picked up, they've still kept that momentum and still been top of the league. They've not moved from really top of the league most of the season. They've been top of the league since September. And obviously, a lot of folk were saying, "Oh, is Hearts going to bottle it? They're going to bottle it by December, bottle it by January." They haven't. They've been top of the league for nearly majority of the season, and now it's only 4 games to go. So it just shows you that Hearts have kept a consistency, and Hearts are showing what it takes, obviously, to play the Old Firm. Obviously, they bet Celtic and Rangers. Obviously, they bet Celtic at home. They bet Celtic away. Obviously the bit Rangers at home and Rangers away. So obviously, it's been a phenomenal season for Hearts, and if they go and win the league, it's just going to be an outstanding story for Scottish football.
You said it was a mental season. I'm going to say bonkers season as well, and it's been a bonkers season for the opponents on Sunday. On Monday, I mean, to say that's why it's a bonkers season. I can't even remember when the game's getting played. But Russell Martin sky-kicked the season. Danny Rose came in, and actually he's kind of like he's a bit like Martin Neil. He gives us massive credit because Rangers were out of sight and far away in the title hunt, and obviously he brought them back into it. And Rangers have still got a chance of winning the title.
It's madness to think, obviously, when Russell Martin came in at Rangers, they were even well at the hunt. They were sitting like maybe like bottom 6 in the league. Like, it was mental just to see the turnaround Danny Rose made. They're sitting third in the league, only a few points off Hearts and Celtic. It's been a massive turnaround for Rangers. Danny Rose has turned that squad around. It's not even half of Danny Rose's team. It's half of Russell Martin's, and the way he's done that, and obviously Danny Rose's own manager, he's only 37. He's got a lot to prove, but honestly, with the job he's done, obviously it's been massive. He's done a fantastic job considering where Rangers were, and obviously they're still in the hunt for a title race. No Rangers fan would have expected that under Russell Martin, and I think it's just been an incredible achievement for Darryl, especially coming into a big job like that. You know the pressure as a manager in Rangers and Celtic. You know how fans, obviously, if you lose a few games, fans will turn on you. And then obviously I've seen a few folks saying if Danny Rowe didn't win the league he should be sacked, but I think that's just wrong. I think considering where they were, and even if they don't win the league, I think Danny Rowe deserves another season and deserves to get his own players in. But so far, what I've seen, I think Rangers have done really good, especially where they were obviously under Russell Martin.
What do you make of James Tavernier coming out and saying that he's leaving Rangers? And I think reports this week is linking him to Tottenham.
I mean, obviously, Tav obviously has done well at Rangers, and obviously he's been a Europa League final with Rangers. He won the league and obviously won a cup. He's obviously been an incredible captain for Rangers. He scored the amount of goals he scored as well. I think it's just shown. He's been a great seven for Rangers. He's been at Rangers for nearly 11 years. Obviously, I knew and a lot of Rangers fans probably thought maybe Tav's legs are gone, maybe that's it, and he's probably just going to leave anyway. But obviously, it's going to be a very, very big job. Who's going to replace Tavernier as captain? Just because Tavernier's been captain for so long at Rangers, contributions made to Rangers through Rangers, tough times in the league and that. So I think obviously it's going to be a miss for a lot of for Rangers as well. But we'll just see what happens where Tavernier goes next. But I think a lot of Rangers fans are obviously going to be quite. It's going to be a sad day for Rangers just because obviously Tavernier's been a big part of Rangers for so long. So we'll just obviously, see what happens where he goes next. But I think, everybody obviously know he wasn't going to be Rangers forever. But yeah, I think obviously, I know obviously kind of wants to maybe end the season to win a league, but we'll just obviously see what happens. But obviously Tav has been a huge contribution to Rangers considering obviously the times they've had, but obviously, he's won three trophies. But yeah, we'll just obviously see how that goes and see where he goes next.
Your prediction for the game on Monday, Heidi, Hearts and Rangers?
Oh, it's such a tough game to call. I think obviously Hearts haven't lost at home. Rangers obviously won 4-2 against them at home. It's just so tight to call. I'm gonna say a draw, 1-1, but that game could go either way. Generally could go either way. Both teams need to win, but I think obviously I'm just gonna go for a draw because I generally can tell who's going to win or lose that. So I'm just going to go Hearts 1, Rangers 1.
I think for me, looking at the last game, if I can remember the game right, the Hearts were dominating the first half. Rangers obviously won the game 4-2 in the end as well. I think will be a very tight game, but I think Hearts will get edged for this game. So I'll go 2-1 to the Hearts on Monday as well. So there you go. Before we move on, I don't know if you saw this news just about half an hour ago before we come on air. The SPL has backed Celtic. The SPFL has backed Celtic in a row over allocation for the away fans for this month's Old Firm meeting of the season with Rangers. And they are yep. So yep, and basically Celtic Rangers fans are getting tickets for the game, but the Union Bears are not getting any tickets for the game. So I don't know if you saw that news before we came on.
I did see something about it actually. Obviously, I knew that obviously a few weeks ago, and obviously they were going to ban Rangers fans from Parkhead. Obviously, what happened the last time in the Scottish Cup quarter final, there was riots on the pitch and that, incidents and everything. And I think not having the away fans is going to diss the atmosphere a wee bit. I think having the away fans makes makes it exciting. I think obviously the last time the Scottish Cup quarter final had 7,000 Celtic fans there, but it just went to chaos and the people obviously ruin it for our fans. It's not the best, but I just think obviously it just doesn't create an atmosphere not having both sets of fans in the stadium. So obviously we'll just see what happens with that. But obviously I did obviously hear that obviously Celtic weren't giving Rangers tickets due to obviously incidents obviously before in this quarter final. But if without the fans, obviously away fans in the stadium, I think it just kind of disses the atmosphere a wee bit, especially for a derby. But we'll just obviously see what happens with that. But I just think obviously it's kind of a wee bit of a blow obviously. But I think obviously the incidents that happened previously, the SFA have obviously said that they won't give Rangers fans tickets. Obviously, I did see that obviously if the Union Bears weren't banned, they weren't allowed in. But I think it's just cause silly people can ruin it for other fans. I think it's just a shame. But if obviously fans want to go and see their biggest rivals, but we'll just see how that goes. But and obviously it's happened previously, but we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, and obviously that game's next Sunday as well, and we'll be previewing the game next Friday on the show. It's going to be a busy weekend next week because obviously you've got the games, but also you've got the Scottish election as well. But we're not interested in the Scottish elections; we're only interested in the football. Okay, let's just go into that's your top six this weekend. Bottom six, Heidi. Game tonight. It's a bit of a weird game tonight, in the sense that it's weird to see a Premiership game on the telly on a Friday night. In fact, you have two Scottish games tonight because you'll have the game in the Championship between Ray Forest and Ross County in the Championship, but also you have Livingston against Aberdeen.
It's obviously an interesting one. You look at Aberdeen, they have been really up and down. Obviously, they were waiting for a manager. They appointed Robson. Aberdeen have been poor this season, and obviously they're not really where Aberdeen really should be in the league. Obviously, Aberdeen are using maybe a top six club. At best, they've got a huge history, big fan base, and it's just been not the best season for Aberdeen. You look at Livingston, sacked David Martindale left. Marvin Bartley's coming in. I think Marvin Bartley's done a great job. Obviously, they got their first win since August against St Mirren, a 2-0 victory, which is obviously massive for them. Obviously, if they knew they did lose that game, they would have been relegated. But I just think, Livingston, obviously, they show up a fight, but they just don't get the results in, which obviously, they maybe are leading and then they just fall off and get a draw and, only get a point. I think Bartley's kind of turned that around a wee bit for Livingston. Maybe they obviously probably will still get relegated, but I mean, it is an interesting game. Obviously, Aberdeen will not want to be dragged into that relegation zone. Livingston will try to be fighting for everything, but it's going to be an interesting game. It's for obviously both sides. It's massive, especially for Aberdeen if they want to stay in that place to get out of relegation.
Yeah, it's a weird season for Aberdeen because, as I said early on today, that Aberdeen's one of these kind of like sleeping giants because obviously Aberdeen is a big city. By the way, it's a nice city go to as well. Busy city. One club city, big fan base, but this is like the first season in the bottom six.
I'm sure it is actually. I don't know. I think maybe they finished their last season, but considering obviously Aberdeen, they obviously won the Scottish Cup, last season against Celtic. They won on penalties, and I think winning that Scottish Cup has just put a wee bit of damper on them. Obviously losing Jimmy Tilleen, Peter Leaving was in for a wee bit an interim charge, and they brought Robson in. Obviously Robson left St Mirren. Obviously it was a gutter for St Mirren fans seeing him go. Obviously, he's done not bad considering. They obviously won against Kilmarnock last weekend. They bet Hibs at home. So I think, they have been a wee bit better. But I think, obviously, it's a huge game for Aberdeen. Hopefully, try and stay out of that relegation. Obviously, Livingston, obviously, are fighting for everything.
Yeah, no, I do feel though that if memory serves me rightly, that they made the top six last season, and then was it the previous 2 seasons before that, or maybe they failed to make it. But I mean, everybody's fighting for their lives down there, right? But basically, like if Aberdeen stays up, the fans still not be happy at that.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a lot of Aberdeen fans will not be happy with the way this season's went. They've just been not the best. They've just been no an Aberdeen we've seen obviously a few last season, especially they were outstanding. Even though before they were sitting near the top two. People were thinking, oh, they could maybe finish above Rangers. Everybody was talking about them how they were flying under Tilleen, and then all of a sudden they've just dropped down, and it's just been a bit of a gutter for Aberdeen, and obviously it will be a poor season. Obviously, next season try and pick back up again, but I just think hopefully tonight will be a massive game, and Aberdeen need to get the win, and obviously Livingston will be fighting for everything.
The Livingston's a bit of a funny team because everybody was writing off Livingston even before they come up. And I don't know about you, but I think they're still away. But you never know in football. If you look at the top end of football, it's a bonkers season, as you said. But I mean, I think because the shackles are off a wee bit, Livingston can play football and win. I mean, you just have to look at last week. They went away to St Mirren and beat them.
Yeah, obviously Livingston have been a team that's been I think they've been quite unlucky this season. Obviously, they haven't really won a game since August, and I know majority of them have been, draws and obviously a few losses in there as well. Obviously, I know previously they did lose 6-2 to Aberdeen, if I remember. But I
Hmm.
just generally think, like, Livingston have been that team just trying to fight, and obviously it just hasn't worked for them this season. Livingston, obviously, I watched them play against Hearts not long ago, and I felt like Livingston, they played all right. Even if like they played like that at the start of the season, I don't think they would have been in position in and out. I think they would have been maybe a wee bit up in the league, but I just think it's been a bit of it's not been the best for Livingston. We'll just see obviously how they do in the championship next season. Maybe that'll time for them to rebound. Maybe if they're going to come straight back up, or they're going to just obviously maybe stay in the championship for a wee bit longer. We'll just see what happens, but I think in terms of Bartley coming in, he has made a wee bit of improvement, and I think, it's been just not the best season to be a Livingston fan, obviously, but it'd be great, obviously, to get a win last weekend. Everyone since August. That feeling of not winning since August must just be awful to be a supporter. But I think in terms, obviously, how they've been obviously trying to put up a fight, obviously even against Rangers as well, the true 2-2 with them. So, and even against us at Parkhead, they didn't make it easy for us. And obviously Livingston, they don't make it easy for any team, but this season it just hasn't been their season. But hopefully maybe next season if they do come back up and try and progress again. But yeah.
What's went wrong with Aberdeen? Do you think it's because of the appointments of the manager? And I think that there was a big, massive gap between Jimmy Cuddy getting sacked and appointing a kind of manager up there. I think Peter Leaving was kind of like stuck in there. Basically, I think that I can't really put my finger on it. What's went on up at Aberdeen?
It's been mad, like the downfall with them's just been mad to think like they won the Scottish Cup last season, they were doing very well last season in the league, everybody thought maybe they would finish above Rangers, but it just hasn't been their season. It's been a very downfall for Aberdeen. I think obviously losing Jimmy Tilleen, which is a blow. Obviously, they were waiting ages to get a manager in the door, and obviously it's just been Peter Lever was in charge. Obviously out the Scottish Cup, got thrashed with Dunfermline 3-0. And I just think it's been just such a downfall for Aberdeen. I just think it's just been not the best season to be a Don, but hopefully maybe next season when obviously Robson will get his chance to sign his own players in the summer, maybe he will do a decent job. And obviously, I knew that Robson would obviously be picked for a big club considering how well he done at St Man. Consecutive top six. He's won obviously a League Cup and obviously got them in Europe previously as well. So I think he did deserve a chance at a bigger job. So we'll just see what happens there. But it's been mad for Aberdeen. Like no one obviously maybe really expected them to be where they are just now, but I think in terms of next season we'll just see what happens. But last season, they were very good, won the Scottish Cup and that, but it's just not been the Aberdeen season this season. It's just something's just not went right for them.
What do you think the prediction will be on the game tonight, Livingston and Motherwell?
I think that obviously, Aberdeen will want to, win it. They'll obviously want to try and keep out the zone. Obviously, Livingston try to put up a wee bit of fight. Obviously, they'll be happy with that win against St Mirren. I think it's going to be so tight. I think I'm going to back Aberdeen with a 1-0, but it could go generally anywhere. Just depends who's going to show up on the night tonight. But I think Aberdeen will scrape it and win 1-0.
I think I will sit in the fence in this game, Heidi, and I will go one each. And because I just feel as though Aberdeen's a funny team, but I just feel as though Livingston reminds me of Hamilton's. At times they're very stuffy, whether it's home or away, and you always guarantee a kind of good football game. And especially on that surface as well, that might play the part tonight. So I'll go for Livingston 1, Aberdeen 1. And don't forget that as a quarter to kickoff. And it's on the TV, that game. Tomorrow, Dundee against Mirren. Of course, we've spoke about this earlier on, Heidi, but I would be interested to see how both of the teams get bounces back. Obviously, Dundee from a derby defeat last week, and then St Mirren, as we said a moment or two ago, against a defeat against Livingston. So it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, I know only 3 points are between the two of them. Obviously, Dundee I want to pick up after a derby defeat against Dundee United. And obviously, everybody wrote off Stephen Presley. Everybody thought Dundee relegated, they won't do great. Stephen Presley has done a decent job at Dundee. He's done a not bad job, Obviously, they've bet Celtic, obviously they've drew with Rangers, they've had some not bad moments, Dundee, but I just think in terms of this game, it's huge for both sides, obviously stressing that relegation scrap, who's going to obviously finish in that playoff position. It's going to be really interesting. That I think obviously both teams have to win this game. Obviously, I just don't know how to call this one. I just think both teams will want to win to try and keep themselves out that the kind of obviously bottom two. So I think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be St Mirren 1, Dundee 1, but it's just going to be such a close game just in terms of both teams. Both teams will want to win, and obviously only 3 points kind of split between the two of them. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. What about the job Stephen Presley has did at Dundee?
I think Stephen Penn's done a decent job. I really think he has. I think everyone obviously writ him off, oh, he'll be the first manager sacked. He won't do very well. He's just outdone two over managers, Wilfred Nancy and Russell Martin. So I just think he's done a decent job considering obviously Dundee, finish, I'm sure a few seasons going to finish in the top 6, but I think he's done a not bad job. They've had some not bad moments Dundee this season, so I think he's done a decent job, and I think obviously they have some decent players in there, especially Ethan Hamilton, Luke Graham, and obviously Simon Murray. So I think it will obviously be quite interesting, that game, but I think he's done a decent job considering obviously everybody wrote him off.
And that's what St Mirren, do you think it's a weird season for St Mirren? Because obviously we spoke about the defeat last week at Livingston. I don't know, Heidi, they're a bit like Aberdeen because they went on and won the cup against Celtic in the played well that game, albeit it was Nancy in charge of Celtic, but it doesn't matter, they still won the cup. But after that, the wheel just came off, and then Stephen Robertson left to go to Aberdeen. I don't know about you, but I don't think that didn't help St Mirren.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, after the cup, they've just kind of dipped, and it's been a bit of strange one. Obviously, St Mirren have been outstanding for a few seasons now, finishing the top six and obviously in Europe. And after they won that League Cup, something just went wrong with them. Obviously, it hasn't been the greatest season for them, and obviously losing their best manager in their history isn't going to be nice. And obviously, Craig McLeish coming in, he has done a decent job. Obviously they got in the semi-final cup against Celtic. Obviously they got beat 6-2, but obviously they done all right considering obviously their main goalie was injured as well, and obviously to bring a 17-year-old who I thought done very, very, very well considering his first debut. I thought he handled the game very well, and I think he does deserve a lot of credit, thrown in the deep end. But I just think, St Mirren's just been up and down considering after they won the Scottish League Cup. I don't know what's happened. It's just been strange to see. But obviously, I do think St Mirren will stay up in the league. I don't think obviously will be in that obviously that 11th place spot. But I just think it's just been a weird season considering where St Mirren were obviously in December. Won the Scottish League Cup. It's just been mad to see.
What's your prediction on this game, Dundee and St Mirren?
Draw 1-1. I think it's going to be very close, just considering where both teams are and obviously where Dundee will. Both teams obviously want to win, but just because there's only 3 points between the two of them, I'm just going to go with a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'll possibly go for a sneaky win for the home side Dundee tomorrow, 2-1 against Dundee. I don't know, maybe Celtic's done something to them a few weeks ago, because obviously St Mirren done well to take it to extra time in the Scottish Cup semi-final, and we all know what happened in the extra time. So I don't know if that's kind of dent St Mirren's kind of like confidence a wee bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, taking us to extra time in the semi-final, I mean, obviously, after I was like, oh no, it's going to go to penalties, I thought we kind of blew it. Obviously, we've been 2-0 up, and obviously St Mirren making that we comeback fit. I didn't expect it to be 6-2. Like, it's mad to think we just scored like 4 goals within the space, like, 20 minutes. It was just mad. Like, I didn't see it coming. I felt like obviously St Mirren maybe put more fit in extra time, but to take it to extra time considering where they've kind of been this season, fair play to them. Obviously having a young lad and goal, a 17-year-old goal, it's never easy, coming up against, in a semi-final at Hampden, it's big pressure, but I think obviously they handled it quite well, and especially the goalkeeper. So I think, credit to where it's due, they come up and put up a fight, but in this extra time they just kind of blew it a wee bit, and it was just Celtic took the win. And obviously I know a lot of St Mirren fans say Celtic just deserved to win in them, but they definitely put up a fight, especially taking it to extra time.
Okay, let's talk about the last game of the weekend, Kilmarnock, and I suppose the only team has got nothing left to play for is Dundee United because they can't get relegated. Obviously, they can't win the league because they're in the bottom six. They can just get going to these games, wanting to win the games, but really have nothing to play for.
Yeah, obviously, Dundee United have secured, maybe 7th place already, so they've not really got any to play for. I think they're just obviously just playing, for pride, just getting the games going. Obviously, their fans will want to win, of course, they will not want to lose. And obviously, they're playing Kilmarnock, who have been pretty, struggling. Obviously, they have done not bad under McCann, obviously they bet Hearts at home, they fought it against Celtic at home, they were 2-0 up. I think it's just been a wee bit of a up and down season for Kelly, and obviously they're in 11th place, so not wanting to be dragged into a playoff position, and it is a must win. Obviously they lost to Aberdeen last weekend, and I know I did watch a bit of highlights. I thought Kelly played up not bad, to be fair. I thought they were alright, but they need to start scoring goals if they want to obviously try and stay out that relegation playoff. They're going to have to win games. I think tomorrow it's going to be a tough game, especially after Dundee United, in the derby, a 3-0 victory. I thought obviously Dundee United fully deserved the win, but yeah, it's going to be interesting for them against Kilmarnock, and I think Dundee United will just want to just try and get every game a win. Obviously, they're not obviously going top 6 now. Obviously, that's been confirmed. Falkirk will be there, but I think Skin and Dundee United were obviously a wee bit up and down. They've done all right. I think they've done not too bad, but I think Kilmarnock it's a must win if they want to keep out the relegation playoff.
Of course, Kilmarnock's in the bottom six. They can't win the league, but it's an old cliche in football. If you're fighting for your life, every game is a cup final as well. But Neil McCann has done a kind of decent job when they went into Rugby Park. But it's funny how it goes like this in football, but they've actually got better home record than away.
Yeah, I've realised that their away record has been pretty dreadful and their home record's been not bad. But I think for this game in particular, Kilmarnock really need to win this game. It's a massive, massive game for them. They need to try and get at least 3 points out of their games they've got left. And I think it's a must try and get the win over the line for them, because obviously I know a lot of Kelly fans not want them to be dragged in the relegation spot, and obviously they'll want to try and keep their place in the Premiership. So we'll just see what happens. But I think McCann's done a decent job. He knows Scottish football. He knows what it means. This league. He's been been in Scottish football for a while now, so he knows what it kind of takes. And obviously they need to try and keep in the Premiership.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I haven't had a look at the fixtures for like next week or whatever, but do you think that they'll be all done to get in the playoffs?
They've more than likely they could be in the playoff, just considering how they have been quite poor this season. And I think all their next 4 games they need to win. It's so important for them, because if they don't maybe get a few points out of them, they're going to maybe be dragged in there, and obviously they might be in a playoff position. Obviously they could get relegated, but hopefully they need to try and maybe keep their fight and keep their place. But it's just it's been a wee bit up and down. Obviously they did beat Hearts. They fought it against Celtic, so it's so interesting to see what happens. But it's been a bit of a poor season for Kelly, and it's just not been the best for them, considering how they've done previously under Steve Clark and everything. So we'll just see what happens, but they need to try and win to try and keep it that relegation playoff spot.
And your prediction for the Dundee United game? I think I'll go for a tight 1-0 win for Kilmarnock.
I'm going to go with a win for Dundee United. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Dundee United.
2-1 Dundee United, and there you go. That is your top six sorted for the weekend. Let's dive into the championship. Of course, St Johnstone won the league, and they got presented with a trophy last week up at McDermott Park. So, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to see Simo Valicari back in the Premiership next season.
Yeah, I think Valicari's done a great job at St Johnstone. Last season wasn't their season, but this season in the Championship they've done great, and obviously went on and won the league. Obviously they were quite, near Partick Thistle in that Championship, and obviously tonight's the final day of the Championship. Obviously, who's going to be in a playoff position? I think obviously Partick are in the playoffs. I think obviously they'll want to try and maybe hopefully they get in the Premiership, but it's going to be interesting that even in the relegation zone, you look at Greenock, Airdrie, Ross County. It's just going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But I think it'll be nice to have St Johnstone in the league again. We obviously lost to St Johnstone last season at their own ground. St Johnstone, have been great. Obviously, they're losing one of their key players, McPakey's going to Hearts. So I think it'll be a big blow for them. But I think Valicari's done a great job, and I think he's a good manager. And I think, obviously, we'll just see how they do in the Premiership next season. And obviously, could they do another Falkirk? You never know. Obviously, they have previously won a cup double and stuff. So they obviously know kind of what it's about, but we'll just see what happens. But Valakai's done a great job, and they fully deserve to win the league.
Let's have a look at the games then tonight. Of course, the forthcoming, of course, we were talking about St Johnstone, they're away to Ayr United tonight, confirming against Arbroath, Morton against Ayr, a quite unusual Glasgow derby to finish the season. Parket Thistle at Queen's Park. If you're going to that game, you might see Reagan at the game. And also the Ross County as away to Raith Rovers tonight. That is a game on the telly. And of course, there's a Livingston Aberdeen game on the telly as well. By the way, I should say that all the championship games last game of the season, and they're all kicking off at 8:15 tonight. So what's your pick of the game and the championship then?
I think obviously, Airdrie, I think that game obviously determines who's going to even finish in that relegation spot. It's going to be massive, obviously, for the two of them. Who's going to try and stay up in the championship? Who's going to face a playoff? We'll just obviously see what happens tonight. Obviously, St Johnstone have secured the league anyway. Partick Thistle obviously, I think they've secured second. So we'll see what happens. But I think obviously the games for the relegation scrap are going to be interesting. Obviously, Ross County, they've been, it's not been the best season for County this season. I'm quite shocked at where they are. Obviously, Ross County, in the Premiership, a few years ago, they've done quite decent, and I think just going down and hasn't been the best for them. But it's going to be interesting, the relegation scrap, and obviously who's going to get a playoff as well. So it's all to play for in the Championship tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, it really surprises you, or does it surprise you? Because every season, there's all about one or two or three maybe stories to talk about. But in the whole, it's been a good season for Scottish football. But the championship always comes up with stories every season.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, you don't know who's obviously going to win the league, who's going to be in a playoff, who's going to surprise you. Like, I think the Championship in Scotland is a great league. I think it's a fantastic league because it just shows you who's wanting to fight up for the Premiership spot, who's wanting to fight for a playoff. It's so interesting. Even obviously, like the Championship in England as well. It's just really interesting to see who's wanting to get that spot in the top flight again. So it's so interesting. The league. It's definitely a really great league in Scotland.
What about I'm not going to let you go until we talk about Neil Lennon and the job that he's doing at Dunfermline. First of all, were you surprised that Scott Brown got the sack from Ayr United, and how good a job is Neil Lennon doing with Dunfermline, getting them to a Scottish Cup final and beating the Aberdeen and Hibs along the way?
I think Neil Wynn has done a fantastic job. He's obviously, I love Neil Wynn. I think he's a great manager. And I think considering beating, all three Premiership teams, obviously won on penalties, and obviously beating Hibs and Aberdeen, it's a massive achievement for Dunfermline. Dunfermline are quite, a big club, and, getting in a Scottish Cup final, it's a Martin O'Neill v Neil Lennon cup final, which will be so really interesting to see, ex-player v ex-manager, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I think, obviously Neil Lennon's done a brilliant job at Dunfermline. They could obviously still try and maybe get a playoff spot, so it's going to be really interesting. But I think, Neil Lennon's done phenomenal. He's an experienced manager. He knows how to win things, and I think obviously that game against Falkirk in that semi-final, I thought Dunfermline were excellent. They've got some great young players on the cards as well. So I think Lennon's done a fantastic job at Dunfermline. And I think he's an experienced manager, and someone that obviously Dunfermline need experience in there, and I think they've got that. So I really think Lennon's done a done a great job at Dunfermline, and obviously Scott Brown, getting sacked by Ayr United. Obviously, Ayr were obviously, maybe in a contender for a playoff as well, and obviously they've just kind of dropped down a wee bit, which hasn't been great. Obviously, I wanted Brown to do well, and it just obviously maybe a manager really hasn't worked for him, and it's a pretty a shame because obviously Scott Brown done so well at Celtic, winning trophies. He was a great captain at Celtic, and obviously for managing, it just hasn't worked out for him recently. But we'll just see what happens. But it's just I think. Brown, obviously, I thought he'd done a great job to begin with, and then it just kind of went downhill. So, yeah.
Um, Yep. So there you go. That is your fix for last week in the Scottish Football Zone, in the Championship and the Premiership. Thanks to Heidi. We'll be doing it all again on Sunday. Of course, we'll be looking back at the games, and we will be looking forward to that big game on Monday night at Tynecastle. The winner. I think the winner takes it all, but ABBA song, winner take it all. I'm not going to start singing on the show. I'm sure that nobody would want to hear my dulcet tones on a Friday night. So we'll be back on Sunday at 2:30, looking back at the games, and then on Monday night as well. Thanks to all your comments. Thanks to everybody is watching the show. Thanks to Heidi, and don't forget to subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone football channel. Fun enough, just look up the Scottish Football Zone and like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back on Sunday after the Hibs Celtic game at Easter Road. So thanks for watching, and enjoy your weekend and enjoy your football.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions